This episode is brought to you by NitroPack. NitroPack is an all-in-one site speed solution. Forget about trying to make caching work with your CDN and image optimization. NitroPack combines all speed optimizations into a single cloud-based solution. That includes advanced caching and built-in CDN, image lazy loading and compression, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript optimization, and more. On top of all that, it's easy and effortless to set up, and it won't take you more than 5 minutes. Once you enable NitroPack on your website, that's where the magic happens. The solution starts applying optimization automatically. If you want to save time and make your customers happy, NitroPack is the solution for you. Visit howibuilt.it/nitro and test NitroPack risk-free by subscribing to their free plan. That's howibuilt.it/nitro. Jack Kitterhing has been in the WordPress space for a while. You can say he deeply subscribes to the ethos that owning your own platform is one of the most important things a creator can do. That a SaaS like Teachable won't be there for you like your own platform, something like WordPress and LearnDash. We have a good discussion about the merits of both, and try as hard as I can't get Jack to admit that maybe a SaaS is better in some cases. But we cover questions like, is it really easy or is it really easier to set up a course on Teachable? What are the benefits of owning your own platform? We get into all of that and more on this episode of How I Built It. This episode of How I Built It, by the way, which is brought to you by NitroPack, Taylor Brands, and Nexus. You can find all of the show notes and learn more about them over at howibuilt.it/261. But for now, let's get into the intro and then the interview. Hey, everybody, and welcome to How I Built It, the podcast that helps small business owners create engaging content that drives sales. Each week, I talk about how you can build good content faster to increase revenue and establish yourself as an authority. I'm your host, Joe Casabona. Now let's get to it. Real quick before we get started, I want to tell you about a free weekly newsletter I'm doing called Creator Toolkits. I want you to become a more efficient creator. It's the whole purpose and mission of this show. I want you to be able to free up more time to create, to get more sales, and to make more money. And you'll be able to do that with these free weekly tips delivered to your inbox every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. with the Creator Toolkits newsletter. As a thank you for signing up, you will get a free content planner that I use personally with YouTube and podcasting, and that is built in Airtable. You'll get that completely for free if you head over to howibuilt.it/Airtable. Become a more efficient creator with free weekly tips delivered directly to your inbox every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern over at howibuilt.it/Airtable. Hey, everybody, I'm excited to be here with Jack Kitterhing. He is the product manager of LearnDash, which is my favorite learning management system. They are part of the Liquid Web family. And full disclosure, Nexus is a sponsor for this entire season. That has no influence over anything I say about any of their other products or who I have on as a guest. I thought Jack would be a really good guest for this topic, which is evaluating tools, especially for creators. So you've heard enough from me. Let's bring in Jack. Jack, how are you today?
Oh, I'm good. Thanks, Joe. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I'm excited. I'm a big fan of LearnDash. I have been for a long time. I met Justin Ferriman, and he was on this podcast way back on like episode 32 or something like that. And that's over 200 episodes ago because this is episode 261. And he imparted some great advice, but I've known him since 2016. I've been using LearnDash that long. And so when I heard that LearnDash was joining the Liquid Web family, I was excited because everything you guys are doing over there is great. And then I found out that my good friend and two-time guest on the podcast, Chris Lemma, was taking over as the general manager over there. So now I'm even, I was even more excited. And so I've also been following you on Twitter for a while. I think probably because Justin was retweeting you, and you're just still kind of doing interesting things. And one of those things was acquiring old .org plugins and reviving them and working on them. And so I'm excited to have this conversation. But before we do, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I am, obviously, you guys know my name. Thanks for the introduction, Joe. By day, I'm product manager at LearnDash. I started off with WordPress when I was about 12 years old. The very first website I built was for retro gaming. So if you're into SNES and retro Mario Kart and you want to run over a banana, I'm the guy.
Awesome.
I've worked in a variety of WordPress companies and roles. I've been everything from a support manager, QA engineer, developer, product manager. I've done marketing and product. I've worked across from WP Dev, which had, I think at the time and still maybe does, like one of the largest plugin catalogs in the WordPress space, most probably.
Wow.
I worked at Mailpoet prior to their acquisition with Automatic. I left about a year before that.
Nice.
And yeah, I originally come from Southeast London. So if you get a weird accent, that's because I'm not American.
That's all right. They get a weird accent every week on this show because my New York accent comes out sometimes. Awesome. Well, yeah. So it sounds like you've been around the block, doing kind of every role in the WordPress space. Now you mentioned that you are also a developer. How long was this? Like when you were 12, you started developing? Is that still part of your day to day, or is it more like, does it help you inform how you guide the product?
Yeah, so I started actually developing when I was about 10. I first picked up HTML,
Nice.
and then I slowly progressed to JavaScript, PHP. And I don't particularly use it in my day-to-day now, but it definitely helps inform as product manager. I can speak to the developers like I can speak to the marketing people.
Yeah.
So I can understand when a developer's explaining scope to me and we're trying to go over like, is this actually doable? And I understand how technical it is as opposed to just trying to force them to do something in a time frame that isn't possible.
Yeah, which is a really important skill to have that very few people have. I've been told I have the same skill, and I have a master's in software engineering, and I know that I was never as good a coder as the we'll say the developeriest people in my program. But my thesis advisor said, yeah, but you have people skills, which is really important, and I don't think I would trade off. I'm really glad to be kind of that good development skills, good people skills balance, because I don't think we see that in a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I don't think we do. I think we see that there's a lot of people that either have one or the other, and sometimes the developers. You speak to a developer, and especially more senior ones in some companies, and they feel like you don't understand what they're saying. It can be a very difficult relationship, especially to kind of have them to trust you in taking that product forward, because they want to know you know what you're talking about. And even if you know it from the customer side, if you don't know from the technical side, you really need that middle person that can collaborate between you. So it really helps sort of streamline the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And trust is a really important, facet of that, of course. But it is tough when even like developer to developer, when I worked in higher ed and we brought in consultants, there was always that kind of like sniffing around. Oh, do you really know more than me? Like you're getting paid more than me. But so yeah, it's forming that relationship and kind of being able to speak each other's language is really important. Now you are the product manager for LearnDash. We got a little bit of history in the beginning. And LearnDash is an LMS plugin that sits on top of WordPress. This show helps creators and small business owners leverage tech and create more consistently. And I think one of the toughest decisions or one of the toughest aspects of being a creator is what platform do I publish on? Where do I put my work? Because on the one hand, you want to be able to own as much as your platform as possible. But on the other hand, you want to spend your time creating. You don't want to spend your time managing your website. And so I think kind of trying to figure out how to strike that balance is really important. So I know in the pre-interview, we talked about how you've used Teachable and Podia, and of course, some of the other WordPress LMSs. What's your kind of general philosophy on finding the right tool?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point because obviously WordPress brings with it a lot of facets where, you need to update plugins. You get that security notice, right? You get the scary email that says, oh, this plugin needs a major update. And then you're like, oh, no, have I been hacked or what's going on?
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think it comes down to your kind of skill level, but also your comfort level, right? Do you have someone in your arsenal, or can you find a company that can manage it for you? So I think WordPress managed hosts are a great way of being able to actually go ahead and use WordPress whatever you want to use it for, right? Because traditionally, WordPress is always cheaper than a SaaS-based route. Like the SaaS stuff is always more expensive. So if you're a small business owner, you're just getting started out, the SaaS stuff may save you some time, which can be valuable, obviously, because everyone values their time. But if you haven't actually got the dollar investment to make, especially if, you're not coming from an American-based country, you're not coming from one of these countries that has a high economic output, and, maybe you're looking at the cost and being like, that monthly cost for Teachable is perhaps like a quarter of your salary in your country.
Right.
And then you're like, that's just too high a cost. So what do I do? And these managed WordPress hosts are incredibly cheap, by the way, now, right? When I first started out, like when I first brought like WP Engine like multiple years ago, it was like I paid like $300 a month and got like next to not a lot for it. And like now they're just getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. You got all the great players in there. Also you've got Nexus with their managed host. So I work at Liquid Web. I've used Kinster extensively as well in the past. And there's so many that are so cheap and they take care of everything for you. They take care of the security. They take care of the PHP side. They take care of all of the tech stuff. They got their automatic updates, their automatic backups. If stuff goes wrong, it's super straightforward to get it resolved with them. And I think really that's where my philosophy would be is, can you afford it, right? If you want the ultimate ease of use, generally a SaaS is easier because you've not got to configure plugins. You haven't got to install something and think I need this. But what you lose with a SaaS is also you lose the flexibility, right? Mm-hmm. If you go to Teachable and they haven't got a feature you want, you can't go to Upwork and post for a developer to code a feature for you because they can't hook into Teachable system, right? But if you install LearnDash and you see, oh, I want this cool feature that LearnDash doesn't have, it's an open source platform. You can go and find, there's plenty of top tier LearnDash developers. We've got a Facebook group of over 20,000 people. There's some great developers in there. There's some great guys and girls that do, these extra plugins for LearnDash, these add-ons. There's like, I think at last count, there's like 85 add-ons for LearnDash. And
wow.
There's multiple talented teams that can build world-class solutions, and you don't get that with the SaaS.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I mean, I've coded a couple of my own little, utility plugins for LearnDash. None I think are ready for prime time, but they did something specific that I wanted, right? I think at one point I was using like ACF for the video URLs so that I could more suitably place them in the template where I wanted. And then when 3.0 rolled out, the templates got a lot better. And then I thought, well, I should really convert all the ACF URLs to proper LearnDash video URLs. And I wrote a little plugin to do that. And so, yeah, absolutely. That you do have the flexibility. I like to put it in terms of, do you want to rent or do you want to own, right? Like renting an apartment means that you probably can't paint the walls or change the kitchen countertops or whatever. But it also means that if your heater breaks, you're not on the hook for fixing it. Whereas when you own a house,
Exactly.
We put in a new shower stall, and a whole bunch of other things in our home. But our HVAC broke, and we had to pay around $9,000 or whatever to get it replaced. So, it. But so you need to determine kind of what, like you said, what Jack said, what your comfort level is. Do you need that flexibility? So when it comes to, so that's kind of self-hosted versus hosted. Do you have a favorite SaaS solution? I'm basically going to ask you to pick your favorite competitor. But is there one? Because
Joe,
what
he's trying to get me fired, people.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I think we both know Chris. I think Chris will probably yell at me first. But yeah, what I like to tell people when they're first starting out, right, especially if there's a free tier for some of these SaaSes, is proof of concept it on the SaaS, right?
Right.
And then move it to LearnDash. And yeah, there's going to be some headache moving it, but you don't really know. If you're just starting out, you might not really know what you need until you need it. So I guess with that, Teachable is the big dog, I think, as far as SaaS goes. Podia is one I guess has been around for a while, but I've just recently heard of.
Yeah, Spodia's been around a while. I guess they're just coming into it with their own. They're very community driven, like a community way of learning.
Yeah.
And that's becoming more and more popular, like with cohorts and everything.
Yeah.
So they're pretty big on that. Before, long back before I joined LearnDash, I used Teachable. I like Teachable. I got nothing against Teachable. It's a solid platform if you're getting started out. And I guess if I had to pick one, I most probably would pick them. If Chris listens to this, Chris, I'm sorry, don't fire me. Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems, like you pointed out, was that when you want to move platform, it can be a pain, right, to move a platform. It's not a straightforward thing. The content doesn't come over one for one. And it can be, a manual process. It's not necessarily an automatic process. And quite often, someone says, well, write a script. And you're like, yeah, but to write a script, it's going to take me X amount of hours. And by that point, I could literally just copy and paste the content, right? It becomes like,
Do I script it or do I just do it? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Do I spend like days writing a script that then breaks? And obviously, I think at that point you've got to consider, like, is it a one-time use? Which, if you move the platforms, it most probably is. And if you've got no interest in selling that script to someone else, then quite often it's easier to just, get someone to copy and paste the content for you. So if you've got a new assistant, they got a perfect job. Move the content.
Yeah, yeah. That's my VA. God bless her. She is in charge of a lot of that stuff. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Now, I will say, I've heard that Teachable is probably good. I heard that Teachable is terrible for memberships and subscriptions, though, which is
right.
In my opinion, the best features that LearnDash has rolled out in like the last year is that membership and now subscription support. I'm using WooCommerce subscriptions, so I think I'm stuck on that because I don't want to migrate all of my customers over because that's like a big pain. But thanks to LearnDash's membership feature, I was able to drop the $200 a year WooCommerce membership plugin I was using. And now that plugin got acquired, I don't have to worry about offending my friends, I think, who made it. But so, I mean, that feature alone saved me a bunch of money, and it was super easy to implement. And then I didn't have I had less dependency for the same functionality. So, yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to make LearnDash straightforward and simple for like a small business owner, someone that wants to create a course, an expert, but we're not missing out the other people, right? We're not missing out higher ed. We're not missing out, the person that's trying to create, corporate training, things like that. But if you're a subject matter expert, you don't want to install LearnDash and then need, WooCommerce subscriptions, WooCommerce memberships. And, not only are they expensive plugins, they're also incredibly complex to set up, right? You see people try and figure out in the Facebook groups, like, what buttons do I need to press? What toggles do I need on? And how many billing cycles is this? So if you can just get LearnDash and install it and be like, oh, this is great. Like, I don't need to do anything else. And like, obviously, maybe I shouldn't reveal it, but that's part of LearnDash 4.0. So the upcoming version, LearnDash 4.0, nice onboarding wizard, get people started quicker, right?
Awesome.
It's always about getting them in the door and helping them create their course, because that's where everyone gets stuck. Like, so many people buy a course plugin, they sign up to a SaaS, and they never even launch their course because they're just too confused by how to actually create the course. So if you can take care of that setup for them and then just let them create the content, because that's what they are. They're experts in what they do, and that's what they want to teach.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. I'll just say a couple of other things here. It sounds like my bootcamp videos are getting less and less relevant as time goes on, which is... I should say that those videos have landed me a couple of coaching clients. People have reached out and they're like, hey, you're the guy who does the LearnDash videos, right? Like, can I hire you? And I'm like, yeah. And so, but that's really great to hear. And then another aspect, right, is you mentioned it earlier, managed hosting, right? Managed WordPress hosting. Yep. Again, I'll throw in that full disclosure that Nexus is a sponsor, but their Store Builder and WP QuickSite are two tools that I reckon, I mean, this is high speculation, so I won't speculate, but those tools make it really easy to bring parity to WordPress versus other SaaSes, right? Where you just sign up for an account and now you have a membership site, right? With Restrict Content Pro, or you have a WooCommerce site with Store Builder. And so I can definitely see more WordPress products going that route. I think as we record this, Elementor just launched its own
exactly. They've launched Elementor Cloud. And, I think you see people trying to remove friction right in the WordPress space. Yeah. Because WordPress has always been a friction-heavy kind of marketplace, right? They say the famous 5-minute install, it's a famous 5-minute install, but you got to go and register the domain, point some DNS, find a host, upload the files, connect to FTP. What's FTP? Someone doesn't know that. And
make the like database. I installed WordPress from scratch recently, and like it all came flooding back to me. I'm like, I actually have to go in and make a database. Like it's a 5-minute install when the hosting company is on board and they're like, we'll make the database automatically or whatever. Like, but yeah, like a 5-minute install with all those caveats you just mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. It's that 5-minute install, depending on your technical capability, is from 5 minutes to 5 hours. Right?
Yeah, right.
And a lot of headbanging. And I think that's where companies are trying to go, right, is almost removing the WordPress layer. So you're keeping the flexibility of WordPress, but you're not keeping kind of the stuff that makes it hard for people to get started. Like let them dive in. You're seeing more and more plugins with wizards. And I don't like the term necessarily of a wizard, because I always think of a wizard as kind of like, well, what do you think I'm stupid? Like, do I really need this wizard? Like, I'll not set up myself. But it's not about that. It's more like a quick start, right? Kind of like you see in Store Builder. Like, obviously, I do work at Liquid Web, to go with Joe's disclosure. But Store Builder, Store Builder has that great thing where it removes that layer of friction between WordPress and WooCommerce, right? A lot of people sign up for Store Builder and they're not signing up because it's like hosted WooCommerce or it's not hosted WooCommerce. They're signing up because it's a way to get an e-commerce site quickly on WordPress with flexibility. It's not about it being powered by WooCommerce. It's not anything to do with WooCommerce, right? They just want an e-commerce store on WordPress without the struggle.
This episode is brought to you by Tailor Brands. One thing we cover a lot on this show is how important it is for new businesses to have a strong online presence. But how many of us actually know how to build a brand on our own? That's where Tailor Brands comes in. It's an AI-driven platform that automatically gives you everything you need to launch a beautiful brand and successful online presence without having any previous design experience. Once you create a logo with it, seriously, it takes 5 minutes. I tried it. Your design theme is automatically integrated into a website. Unlimited designs for social media, a digital business card, and even printed business cards and merch that you can all access through the Tailor Brands platform. The great thing about it is everything takes a few minutes to set up, so you can have an entire online presence by the end of the day. And you can get 40% off if you go to tailorbrands.com and use my code BUILTIT40. That's BUILTIT 40. That's tailorbrands.com and code BUILTIT40 to create an online presence for your business at 40% off. You know, to call back to kind of me asking you to pick your favorite SaaS, right? Your favorite kind of competitor. I think soon it's really not going to be a comparison, right? Because you look at like LearnDash, I think that part is getting a lot easier, and that's kind of what I base my whole membership on, right? Over at Creator Crew, it's like how to have your own platform, and I don't exactly say it that way because nobody's like Googling like how to have my own platform, but how to leverage the right tools. And unless you're paying Teachable like hundreds of dollars a month, they're taking the credit card fee and then a little extra, right? I think it's like 10% for the lowest plan. Like that's a big chunk of change.
It's huge. That's why people stop selling on eBay, right? Because of the eBay fees. And then, you got to consider like people want to take their $1 million in sales and then they lose like 100K off that. And, they pay all their taxes on top, they pay their staff, and you're like, oh shit, I've lost half my money.
Right.
Where did my money actually go? And that's obviously what you get with, something like LearnDash or a WordPress plugin is you get the fact that the sales are yours. Like, you make that sale, you pay Stripe their 2.9%, their 2.4%, whatever they take. And then the rest is in your pocket. And that allows you as well to build a better site, right? You can build a better business. You've got more money to hire people. Like if you take a lot of money and you're paying a company 10% to kind of handle your sales for you, like imagine if you can invest that 10% into your business as opposed to paying it out to a SaaS.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And there are benefits. There could be benefits, right? If Teachable had like a featured course every week and you knew that your course would get featured and that would boost sales like 500%, right? Maybe that 10% is worth it, right? But they're too big at this point to do that. Just like Udemy is like highway robbery in my opinion, but that's maybe for another time.
That's a whole 2-hour conversation.
I know. I have strong opinions. I think, I spoke to, oh man, it's really going to escape me. I spoke about it on a previous episode though, so I'll link it in the show notes, which you can find over at howibuilt.it/261. So that's kind of WordPress versus SaaS, right? But let's say our list, I feel like we've heavily guided the listeners towards going the WordPress route. There's also a lot of competitors in the WordPress space, right? I think, tell me if I'm wrong. I would suspect that Lifter is your biggest competitor. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so Lifter LMS is up there, and then Tutor LMS kind of, started gaining more popularity. I would say, I think actually if you look on WordPress.org, Tutor LMS has more active installs than Lifter now.
Interesting. And both of those have a freemium model, right? Where you get some functionality for free.
Exactly. So both of them have a freemium model, which, does drive people to kind of try them first. But they also have that model where, I can't speak much to Tutor LMS's pricing right now, but Lifter LMS, for instance, if you want everything and you want advanced quizzes like what LearnDash has, it's almost like $1,200 a year.
Right.
And then LearnDash is sitting there at like $159. And there's so much in LearnDash for the price, right? It literally is. I know I work there, but even if I didn't work there, it is incredible value, like for what you get.
Yeah, absolutely. I will vouch for that, right? I think probably the biggest, maybe the biggest pricing model difference between Lifter is the one I'm most familiar with, outside of LearnDash, right? Is that Lifter kind of offers kind of not a la carte pricing, but it's like there are different packages. I feel like LearnDash is the more a la carte, right? Where you get the core functionality for a very low price, and then maybe you need to buy a couple of add-ons to do this and that. But
right, and I mean,
yeah.
we include LearnDash developed add-ons in the price. So you know, you get the 15 LearnDash developed add-ons. We release new ones consistently. Like last year, we released achievements and integrity. So integrity helps protect your courses and your content. And I think, you know, there are kind of these add-ons that maybe some people want. So for instance, like, you know, you want to create a Udemy style site. There's a great plugin for that for LearnDash. You can create a Udemy style site with LearnDash. And there's so many ways you can do it with WooCommerce as well if you wanted to, or multi-vendor marketplace. But I would say, like, if you're a core course creator, that really LearnDash does include most of the functionality you need, right? There's very few instances where, like, you're a subject matter expert and you're going to be like, oh, no, I need to spend another $500 on some other add-ons, right?
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly with that. I use LearnDash Core and their included add-ons. And then, like I said, I'm only using WooCommerce subscriptions because when I started using LearnDash 6 years ago at this point, there was no subscription thing. But I mean, today, memberships and subscription, I think in its purest form, like I can't say enough nice things about that feature specifically. I just love it. And then, yeah, there's like the Stripe add-on, right? Which I think is, did I read in the Facebook group that's getting built into, you won't need an add-on for that soon?
Right, yeah. So we're actually getting Stripe Connect into LearnDash Core. So Stripe Connect is a nice, easy way to get started with Stripe. So, just hit that Connect button, log in or create a Stripe account, and you're set up and ready to go. So, you're no more faffing about with keys and webhooks and setting stuff up in Stripe. And
I wish you told me that, because I just put a YouTube video out on how to do the whole thing. But that's really good, right? Because Stripe has changed considerably over probably the last 2 years, right? A year or so.
Yeah, Stripe changes considerably, and I love Stripe, especially as a developer. They have fantastic documentation.
Yeah,
but they're always updating their endpoints, their webhooks, and everything you need to do. So sometimes, like at LearnDash with the Stripe add-on, we would release an update, and then we'd be like, you have to go into your Stripe dashboard and you have to edit like this setting and this setting for it to actually work, and that's very confusing for people. Like, they're like, why do I have to do that? Like, Stripe worked forever. So with Stripe Connect, it's great because it's all taken care of.
Awesome. Yeah. So I guess what I'm really digging at here, I don't want you to just say, keep talking about your competitors and all that, but there are different needs and different feature sets, right? And so I guess, what do you recommend for the creator as they're evaluating all of these options?
So I think what you need to do is you need to really step back and think about your learners, right? You need to create the persona of who is actually going to be taking your course. It's no good just coming at it and throwing some content on the website and thinking people are going to come to it and take your course, because they're never going to do that, right?
Right.
It needs to be targeted. It needs to, you need to think. I know Chris is a big fan of his micro segments. You need to segment your users on what they're looking for, and that will really inform your decision of a platform, right? Because once you define the segments, you know what features you need, and then once you know what features you need, you can go ahead and do a comparison across them all. And I would say that you shouldn't always pay attention to comparison pages on anything like a SaaS, a WordPress plugin, because they're, without saying it, they're very creative. Like, that you see on some of these places and you're like, that's not really accurate, but okay.
Right.
And so I think, do your own research and find trusted experts and, find them YouTube reviews and real users. And once you have them segments, you can go and be like, well, perhaps you need like Zoom integration. Mm-hmm. So then you go and you look at every platform that has Zoom integration, and then you work out the cost. Is it in core? Do you need to pay extra money for it from a third party? How well supported is it? How integrated is it? And you can work out then the cost as well of what you need. because like a lot of people make the mistake, they jump into a course platform and then they find out after they creating their course, oh, I need these 10 features.
Right.
And then if you're in a SaaS like Teachable, most probably you got to move because you can't do it if they don't have the feature.
Right.
If you're on a WordPress plugin, you either find out that you need to pay thousands of dollars to a developer to build it, or you need to go and spend another $1,000 on third-party add-ons. And that's really important that you figure out what segments you're targeting so you know what features you need.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I've talked about this a lot. Because I just kind of go, my approach was always came with the hubris of using WordPress since like 2004. So I'm like, I probably know what I'm doing. But when I first launched my online learning site, it was using Paid Memberships Pro and WooCommerce and Sensei. And then I started using LearnDash, and I thought, well, if I'm using WooCommerce anyway, why would I use Paid Memberships Pro besides the fact that I know the Colemans and I live like an hour away from them. But it wasn't really the right tool for the job. And then, LearnDash has changed and includes a lot more. And then I went and did the same thing for the How I Built It membership site, where I built a whole new membership site. And I'm like, why didn't I just put this in my other site that supports memberships? So, that's a cautionary tale.
Right.
I was just kind of like, shoot first, ask questions later. Let's see if I could do this. But like you said, the important thing to do is make a list of your most important features.
I think you make a good point as well, because when you have you got a membership plugin, you got an e-commerce plugin, and then you got a platform plugin. So a platform plugin is something like LearnDash, something like that. And each plugin has a registration process, right? Mm-hmm. Each plugin hooks into WordPress login, WordPress registration. And I see it all the time. People get so confused in different Facebook groups. They're like, I've got these 5 plugins and they all handle registration differently. And I've got like 6 registration pages. And where do people go to log in? And and I think, and that's one of the reasons we added subscriptions and memberships to LearnDash. Nice. Is to create that streamlined process, right? Because then if you've just got one plugin, it's one process. And that's really important, especially if, you're not a developer type person, right? You don't want that confusion. Because, when you get all these plugins together and they're like, well, where do I go to log in? Oh, I've got 4 login pages.
Right. And emails too, right? This is another thing.
Yeah.
Like, I had someone sign up for my newly minted membership, and I had the LearnDash notifications on. Except I had it so that when you purchased a product, WooCommerce would automatically register you for all 10 courses. And then I had a generic, email them whenever they register for a course, right? So now my users are getting the receipt, the account information, and then 10 emails for each individual course that they've registered for. And so I've since turned that off. And now I think LearnDash also lets you send an email after the first lesson, or maybe it's a Zapier trigger. I set up something a lot better where, they basically get an email explaining everything. And then at some point in the course, they'll get an email that says hey, good job. Do you have any questions or whatever?
Right. And I think that's a great point, is that, QA your product before you launch it, right? Always, you set up a new website. I've been in QA for a while, but always go through the steps as an end user, right? Completely take a step back. And even better, if you've got a friend that you trust, give your friend the site link and does this make sense to you? What do you receive? Because it's so easy when you're the one building it to kind of get lost in it and be like, yeah, this makes total sense. Then someone else steps in with a fresh pair of eyes and they're like, this makes no sense at all, right? It's the most confusing thing in the world. And that would really help you as a creator to kind of figure out the processes that you want to put in place. It's if you get 50 emails when someone signs up, and then they're like, what's going on? Straight into spam. And then, you kind of hurt your email sending reputation before you start.
That's Ramlee John has a really good book that the name is escaping me. I'll link it in the show notes though. It's all about like the user onboarding experience. And this is what inspired me to test the whole process myself, right? Because again, it's easy when I'm a developer. I've been using WordPress for a long time. So I'm just kind of like, I assume that things will work the way they're supposed to, right? But like, that's not, you shouldn't ever do that, especially if you're bringing a bunch of tools together. So I think kind of bringing it back around, right? You list out the most important features for your learners, right? Do that ideal customer avatar. Who's coming to you? Is it like a mom with 3 kids who's trying to learn like because she got the glorious simultaneous nap time of all 3 kids, which by the way, my wife and I achieved that over the weekend. Or is it somebody who has to learn for part of their job? They're going to have different experiences. You figure out the right tool and then test and work through it yourself and see what the onboarding experience is like.
Exactly. Onboarding is so important to the process, right? That's where you gain, you literally can churn someone at onboarding. Like onboarding is so bad and then they're just like, I'm not going to use this. That's a refund request or they just churn. And, especially as a small creator, obviously churn is important for everyone. But if you're a small business, you don't want to be churning customers before they start the journey.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I tweeted this like back in August and then somebody just responded to it like yesterday. But I thought it was baffling to me that in WooCommerce, you can't customize the thank you page without I think it was a $50 or $99 add-on. And they're like, well, like WooCommerce's model is it's free and then they make money on the extras, right? And I'm like, yeah, but like my point is that shouldn't be an extra. Like, I feel like the thank you page is a core part of the purchase experience, especially if you're going to have if you're going to sell digital products or login information, right? Like, and so I think like another liquid web product, Cadence, allows you to custom Cadence, one of Cadence's products, allows you to do that customization. They have like the WooCommerce emails customization too. And so, this is all a lot to think about. But it's all important, I guess is my, I guess this is kind of a tangent, right? But,
it's a good point because I think a lot of people in WordPress feel like they're nickel and dimed, right? They're new to it. Like you're new to WordPress and you kind of get that thing where you see it's free, it's cheap. You see these famous like GoDaddy $5 hosting and Bluehost super cheap hosting and all these super cheap deals. But then you actually get into it and you kind of feel nickel and dimed because you go and buy a plugin, a premium plugin, and you get to that point where you think, well, now I've spent like $1,000, so I need to spend another $3,000, and now I need to spend $2,000 for a consultant to actually put it all together for me. And it's quite easily done where you spend too much because it wasn't planned out. Like if you're a small business owner, you're a creator, always plan out what you're trying to build because then you know what you're getting into before you start. Too many people just dive into picking out a host, installing WordPress, and they chuck tons of stuff on it. Right? It's like a kid in a candy store. Like let's put every candy in the bag and we're trying to figure it out later. And then that's kind of like, you end up with a stomach ache.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I think it's important to have a good guide here to understand what you're doing. Because this can sound overwhelming, right? Like this sounds overwhelming to anybody who's like, well, I just want to start an online course, right? And this is why kind of laying out those requirements is important and picking the right tool from the outset is important. So kind of like we've talked about, right? My issue stemmed from trying to do too many things and like an ardent goal to not have to write any of my own custom code. And so I just threw a bunch of things together. If I had done it right, I would have probably in the beginning just used LearnDash's payment gateways instead of WooCommerce, maybe with a different subscription plugin or a different membership recurring payment plugin at the time. So, I want to stress that any of these tools, SaaS or self-hosted, can be overwhelming, and it's easy you could choose the wrong one no matter what. So putting some thought into the beginning and finding good resources is important. And then I think the big benefit of going the self-hosted route, like Jack mentioned earlier, is if you do need something custom, it's a lot easier on the self-hosted platform. So blending that ease of use with customization is like the sweet spot for a lot of creators.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think as well, you see in the SaaS world, you see people kind of sign up because they think it's easier. But, SaaS products can be so overwhelming too.
Yeah.
Go and spin up any SaaS product today and see how many options they got. There's so many options, and it's kind of an option overload because everything's built in.
Yeah.
So that's where WordPress is nice as well, because WordPress is, more modular, right?
Yeah.
If you don't necessarily need it, you don't have to have it. No one's forcing you to install 50 plugins. Like no one says go and install 50 plugins, right? Like I see people and they install 100 plugins and they're like, do I need all this? And it's like, well, you've got 5 security plugins and 6 like caching plugins.
Right.
It's like, no, you definitely don't need it all.
This episode is brought to you by Store Builder from Nexus. When it comes to setting up an e-commerce site, you have a choice between easy but limited or a limitless platform that you need to manage yourself. Until now. Store Builder is e-commerce made easy for everybody. It saves you time and delivers a storefront that lets you get to selling. As someone who set up multiple e-commerce sites, I can tell you that Store Builder has been a much easier experience than anything else. Answer a few questions, add your content, and sell. Store Builder was created and is supported by e-commerce experts at Nexus. Get the speed, security, and support you need when you need it. Are you ready to launch your perfect online store? Head over to howibuilt.it/storebuilder for a special offer. That's howibuilt.it/storebuilder. To bring it back to LearnDash, I think you have still right now one of the better onboarding or getting started experiences because you have the boot camp with videos embedded, right? Beautifully narrated by someone.
Perfectly done.
Yeah, just wonderfully done. Yeah, great videos. No, and I think that is super helpful, right? I think that, obviously there's great value in that video learning aspect. And I don't know if Teachable has it, but I do know that I just set up like SparkLoop for email referral, and they have a pretty good onboarding process, but I would love to see that come down to like fewer steps, right?
Right, and I think that's like where we're trying to go with LearnDash, right? Yeah. With the onboarding wizard, because but what we're also trying to do is make sure that it's powerful while still being simple, right? So like at the end of the onboarding wizard, we show you like, we've created 50 steps automatically. We've configured this, and this option for you based on what you told us. But then it's there. So if you're an advanced user, maybe you want to change some settings about before you finish it. And then, you obviously follow Chris on Twitter. You see my Twitter. So you may have seen me mention the new video creation tool. So the new course creation tool will basically allow you to drop a playlist URL into the tool, and we will build your course for you. All you literally need is one URL. Every video is pulled in. The description is passed. Everything's in there. And that's going to be such a powerful way to get started with LearnDash. Yeah. Right? If you're that small creator and you've got videos, one link, click one button, and you're away and ready to go.
Yeah, that's really amazing, right? And I suspect you probably know this better than me, but do you find that most of your creators are using like unlisted YouTube videos for their courses, or?
Yes, we see a lot of unlisted YouTube videos. Then we also see a lot of Vimeo. So, the tool will support multiple video players, and most probably in the end just support any video file format. Like, give us a Dropbox links with some MP4s in it. We'll pull them in. We'll pull anything in. It's a video, we can pull it in. And, I remember when Chris asked me for this, and he was like, can we do this? And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure we can do it, right? Like, I don't see any problem. I'm reasonably confident we can do it. And like, I gave it to, obviously, since the acquisition, Liquid Web has like hired us more developers. We've got a lot more development power than we had. And I gave it to one of our new developers who's been a friend of mine for a while. And he was like, yeah, I can do this. And I was like, can you do it in 2 days? So I really want to look at a prototype. And he was like, that's kind of quick. And I was like, yeah, but I know you can do it. So, on one of the Fridays, he just sends me this link and he's like, yeah, try this out here. And I'm like, perfect, right? Like, it's just so amazing to see it created so fast. Like, I dropped a YouTube playlist URL. Then I had a course with like 12 steps built in like 60 seconds.
Yeah, gosh, that is amazing, because as I use Vimeo Pro, and that is by far the most time consuming part. I mean, putting the course together, obviously. But when it comes to launching the course, right? That is by far the most time consuming part is your course builder in LearnDash is already really good, right? You can kind of create everything there in one screen and then kind of click through to each one. But man, just uploading a playlist. This is I think one of the great reasons why you should go with tools like LearnDash, right?
Right.
Because of the flexibility, the ability to move fast, right? You want to serve the most amount of customers possible, but if you do have these kind of little niche needs, they can also be served probably more likely there than like with Teachable or whatever.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like appealing to everyone as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of people do create video courses now. I mean, personally, I'm like a writing, but I'm like a written down person. Like every course I do is like written down, and everyone's like, "Why aren't you doing video?" I'm like, well, as you can tell, I don't have a good mic. I don't have a good setup for doing video, right? I live in Southeast London. There's a lot of background noise quite often. It's not really optimal to try and do video courses. So, I write it down, but I love the fact that people will be able to get started so quickly, right?
Yeah.
Like so many people come to us at LearnDash and they want video, and to just be able to dive into that and have that as part of the wizard, right? It's just so easy to set up and do. And, sometimes there's questions like, well, how do I create a lesson? Like, what is a lesson in LearnDash? And it's like, you don't even have to worry about that because we do it for you, right? Yeah. We're assuming your video is a lesson, right?
Right.
And add a price to it because the setup wizard, you've got Stripe Connect. You'll be selling your course in, I don't know, however fast your internet connection is, right? If your internet connection is pretty decent, you can be selling the course in 5 minutes.
Yeah. A famous 5-minute install, right?
Right, famous 5-minute install, but LearnDash style.
Yeah, gosh, that's so great. I love that. Well, I think we've given the listeners some good takeaways, right? I think probably the most important thing to think about is your needs, and how you can be best served, right? You want to serve. Do you want to look at cost and flexibility? Understanding that your needs are gonna grow too. So,
that's a great point. Scalability, right?
Yeah.
Scalability with a SaaS versus a self-hosted solution. Like if you've got a WordPress site and you get 1 million hits, you're on Oprah.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh crap, what do I do, right? Well, like most managed WordPress hosts will serve that for you. They've got the capability to serve that content. They'll figure out the billing with you later. But if you're on a SaaS and then they're like, no, sorry, you hit the limit. Like, you need to upgrade your plan.
Right.
And it's like, I just lost like, $500,000 in sales because I need to upgrade my plan.
Right.
Whereas, the WordPress host would just do that. And, I think you can see even, I can't remember the company now, but there's like a big brand on Shopify. They have problems with scalability because Shopify is fantastic and they got some of the best engineers in the world. But what you got to keep in mind is you're always really on shared hosting, right? With a SaaS, you're always on shared hosting. You're always sharing it with someone else, and a noisy neighbor like they annoy you in real life can annoy you on the server. Yeah. And you get that person that gets a ton of traffic, or they get something happen to them, and that's where owning your own platform really comes into its own. right, on WordPress. You've got that flexibility to move it wherever. If you get a sudden spike, spin up a new server, route some traffic somewhere else, you can't do that on a SaaS. You can't magically make headway on a SaaS like that.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, even using YouTube or Vimeo, right? You have your videos there. And like, granted, you probably have the raw files, but from what I understand, Teachable does the video hosting too, right? So,
right, exactly.
Like, what if I just want to share a video? What if I want to move services? Now I have to download and re-upload all those videos again, I guess this is maybe the thesis that I'll set in when I do the intro for this episode, right? But as a creator, it's important to be flexible, right? If you just want to sell one course and you know it's just going to be one course, maybe Teachable is good for you, right? But if you want to build a business where you're creating content, where you're building a community and working with students, I think you probably want a little bit more than just the ability to give access to videos by a single payment, right?
Right. I think also it's important as a business to own your own data, right? And that's what you get with WordPress, right? You got a WordPress site, even if the plugin itself doesn't provide you a way to export, you got WordPress's exporters, there's plugins that can export.
Yeah.
You got direct access to your database. Just download your database. You've got all your data there. You own your data. You can do anything with it you want. You don't always get that with a SaaS. I mean, technically, obviously, you own the copyright to the course you upload, to what you create, but we've seen it before with SaaSes in the past, not necessarily LMS world, but other SaaSes where, they lock down the person's account because of whatever reason, some like old tweet gets resurfaced and that person gets cancelled and then they cancel the account. And if you've got a WordPress site, you own it. It's very rare for a host to cancel an account, basically is what I'm saying.
Right.
I've never seen or had any customer in like 12 years say, oh, my host canceled my account because of this. Right. It's always because of a SaaS. Because what you get with a SaaS is like, and this does happen in the LMS world, right? So you have a textbook that's like in a high school, in a class. Someone wrote that textbook like 20 years ago. And then they file like a copyright claim on the person because they used a small piece of that text in their course to like make a point, do a quote. But then some of these platforms, they will take your website down. They'll take your course down as they investigate.
Right.
And then you've got no other income stream. Like if that's your income stream to pay your mortgage and your course gets taken down while they investigate for 4 weeks, what do you do? But if you're on WordPress, you've got the content. You've got the full access to everything. And that's why I think as a creator, it's super important to have your own access, your own content.
I guess that's right. You're taking on a little bit more risk, but you presumably understand. I guess you're not even taking on more risk. You're taking on the same amount of risk, but now you have this middle entity that doesn't want to take on the same liability that maybe you understand, right? Maybe that's the way to put it.
I guess you can mitigate the risk, right? Because what the problem is obviously you get someone sends in a copyright claim to a SaaS and they don't want to be sued for $400 million from someone with a book. So they just take down your account because that's the quickest way to resolve it, right? They don't want to go to you and say, oh, have you got permission for this? Can you prove the permission? It's too long-winded.
Right.
Whereas if you own it and you get that request and you're like, I didn't actually get permission, you can just delete off the website, right? Apologize, delete off the website. The content's removed. I won't do it again. Sorry. Yeah. And especially not going to go any further, but you've still got your content. Whereas at SaaS, they never get to that point because their lawyers internally are too worried about being sued to give you that opportunity.
Yeah. And similarly, right? Like if somebody wants to sue Teachable for $400 million, they could probably get some fraction of that. If they're suing me for $400 million, they're not getting that. I don't have that.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing as well. I think you get that with a SaaS, some of these companies, they're more willing to go after a larger brand, right?
Right.
Because they know, like, if they take Joe to court, they're not going to get $400 million from you, but they take Teachable to court. They can get, they can get something.
Right. They're going to get $500,000 from my insurance policy, and then my premium is going to go up like $10 a month or something like that. Like that's what they'll get from me. So that's a really good point. I think I really like this episode because I don't feel like we started at a very clear spot and then we ended in a really good spot. So thank you, listeners, for coming on this journey with us. Before I ask Jack about his trade secret, I do want to say that we'll talk briefly and build something more about cohort-based courses mostly, but where online learning is going and where Jack sees LearnDash in that bigger picture. But before we get to that, oh, by the way, sign up over at howibuilt.it/261 if you want to become a member to hear that conversation. But Jack, I do need to ask you my favorite question, which is, do you have any trade secrets for us?
Oh, do I have any trade secrets? I guess my main trade secret is that I don't. I guess the main trade secret is being in the game a long time and working in a lot of places. That's my trade secret, right?
Yeah.
Wear of many hats. Learn as much as you can.
I like that. Put in the work, learn from people. That's not a secret. That's just something I think that people want to try to shortcut, right?
Yeah, put in the time and learn it. There's so many great people, especially if you're getting started in the WordPress or creative space. There's great communities out there that, push people along and help out. And without them communities, you don't grow, right? I mean, the first websites I built were freaking terrible.
Yeah.
They were absolute crap. Will quite
blue background, gold text. That was my first website.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a bit of marquee, scrolling along the top,
We made websites at similar times. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Jack, this has been a great conversation. If people want to learn more about you, where can they find you?
You can find me over on Twitter at codemonkey_Jack, and you can also find me at jack.dev, which is my sparsely used blog, though I do post every few weeks.
Jack.dev. Wow, nice work getting that.
And that is jak.dev because someone already stole my URL.
I feel that. There's somebody owns Casabona.com and owned it well before me. But the site was dormant for 10 years. And every so often I'd be like, so can I buy this? And they're like, nah. And it's back now. And I was really bummed that I can't have Casabona.com.
I feel that.
Yeah. So awesome. Well, I will link to all of that in the show notes over at howibuilt.it/261. Thanks so much to NitroPack and Nexus for sponsoring this episode of How I Built It. If you want to hear Jack and I talk more about where online learning is going and where LearnDash sees itself, you can become a member of the Creator Crew. You'll also get ad-free extended episodes of all of the interviews that I do here on How I Built It. You can do that for as little as $50 a year over at joincreatorcrew.com, or again at the show notes page on howibuilt.it/261. But that's it for this episode. Thanks so much for listening. And Jack, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Joe. I appreciate it too. It's great being here.
To everybody out there listening, until next time, get out there and build something.